everyone, welcome to another video for Hobby Hoppers. My name is Steph, the first magic maker for the creative team, and today I have a new card to share with you using adorable Lawn Fawn products. This card, at the time of filming this video, features products that are available on the Hobby Hoppers website right now. So if you're wanting to recreate it, that's a great place to grab these items. Now that we've seen the card, let's get started on making it. As you can see, I'm using the adorable Happy Hugs stamp set that was from the new release. I'm also using my plaid stencils. These have been so much fun to play with already. My selfie frames die set. I'm also going to be using a set of slimline dies. Today's card is going to be a slimline card because I haven't made one in a long time. And so first up, I'm going to be measuring out my card base. To do this, I simply mark out on some white cardstock how big my slimline die is, leaving a little bit of extra room around the edges. I do this twice, and then I simply trim it down and score it. While I'm fairly certain you can buy slimline card bases, I don't make them often enough to store in my tiny craft space. So I'm happy to whip one up every time I make them. Once I had prepped my card base, I then moved on to getting these little Polaroids ready. So I used my die 3 times with some white cardstock, and then I also measured out some pieces of cardstock that were just slightly smaller than those Polaroids. And these are going to stick on the back. I'm going to be stamping directly onto these. They're also going to help seal up the shaker elements on this card. Here I am just marking out how big the windows are on this so that I know where to line up my stamps. Just like always, I'm going to stamp my images twice so that my lines are nice and clear and dark. I just love this fox and bunny so much. I know that all the characters in this set hugging are adorable, but I think there's just something so sweet about the fox and bunny, and everyone who I show these stamps to just instantly melts. I think it might be because they're an unlikely pair. Once my little characters were stamped out onto those little backgrounds, I then stamped the sentiments onto the front of each Polaroid, kind of like when you write a caption on it. I liked where my squirrels and mice were placed, but my bunny and fox I moved around a little bit. Now to colour in today, I've decided to go with monochrome, which is very tricky, at least for me. I am still very much in the early stages of learning how to do this. I'm finding it to be fun though. I love how these cards turn out. If you're after some perfect examples of what this could look like, I highly recommend you look up Maureen Simon on Instagram. Her cards, when she does this, literally look like she's just put a black and white filter over her cards. They are that perfect. I think what's helping with mine is that I'm making sure that I settle on the type of grey that I'm using. So here, as you can see, I've got all the cool grey pens that I own. They're not Copics, they're just my cheap alcohol markers. And you can see that just in a set of these, that there are so many variations of grey, and especially that CG3. That one to me is too purple, so I actually didn't colour with that one at all when I made this card. I feel like one of the tricks is to make sure your colours are as similar as possible and in just slightly varying shades. So just like always with my colouring, I'm going in with 2 colours, the light one first, the dark one for shadows, and then back over with the light one to blend them out. It's a little bit funny because I always colour my mice in grey anyway, so they don't really look different to what I usually do. Colouring in the fox and bunny like this though was a little bit challenging and a lot of fun. It was fun working out what colours that they might be in colour and then trying, I guess, to match it with a grey. I wouldn't think a fox and a bunny would be the same colours, so their colouring is very different. While I've got you here and I'm getting my colouring done, I thought that I would mention that this is now the second video that I have made for the Hobby Hoppers creative team. I am so excited to be a magic maker for this amazing small business and feel so lucky that Trish, who owns and runs everything by herself, trusts me to make beautiful things with the products that she sells on the Hobby Hoppers website. I hope that you'll check the website out and see all of the amazing things that are in stock. Once the little characters themselves were done, they really did look like they were just floating in midair. So I decided to very simply add a ground and a little bit of shadow here, just so that it looked like they were at least sitting or standing on something. For this, I'm using, I guess, a mid-tone grey, a lighter grey, and then I'm blending that together. And then a little bit later, once all this had dried, I looked at it again and realised that it still kind of looked a little bit floaty. So I used a much darker grey directly under them so that it would look like a heavier shadow. And then I blended that again, and I feel like it turned out pretty good in the end. It was then time for my little white highlights, and just like with regular colouring, I feel like they were super important to add with these grayscale characters. For one final detail with these little characters, I decided to colour in the background a little bit too. I guess typically I might go for a coloured background, maybe some coloured cardstock or pattern cardstock in these little photos. But because I was going a grayscale, it was really tricky to decide what to do. So I thought just this simple blended background would give enough dimension. It was now time to work on my slimline background. So I've been really excited to do a slimline plaid just to get my head around it, to work out how and when I need to move my stencils. But of course I've gone that little bit further and done a really challenging one. So for my background today, I'm using black soot and hickory smoke. And while this grey is my most cool grey Distress Oxide ink that I own, it's much cooler than my frayed burlap. But there was still something about it that it was kind of, I don't know, I feel like maybe it's a little too brown. I've mentioned in the past that I am super picky with my blacks. I like black. I don't like blue black, brown black, red black. I like things to be really true in that sense. So the grey in the background to me was maybe the only thing I don't like about this card, because I wish it was a little bit cooler. As soon as I start playing around with my apps on my phone to edit, I can make it look perfect instantly. So it was just slightly off. But I'd love to know if you have any suggestions for another shade of Distress Oxide ink that maybe I've missed. I don't have all of them. I'm far from owning all of these inks. But I would really like just a very cool grey. So with me babbling, hopefully you notice that I have used black going one way with the stencil that has the lines of varying sizes, and then I've turned it 90 degrees and now I'm using my grey. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different with the skinny stencil today. I'm going to be using my Stickles paste. I can't remember what colour this one is, it's just clear and sparkly. I'm going to carefully spread this across, trying to make sure that I don't lift the stencil at all so that these lines don't smudge and so that none of this paste gets under my stencil. And I'm really excited to do this for more cards. This was kind of just, I had it in my head, I wanted to get it out of my system, I had to do it at least once now so that I know I can do it. And honestly, I think I'm going to be doing this a lot at Christmas time. I can already see myself doing red and green plaid with a layer of sparkly lines too. I think that's going to look amazing. But for now, it's all black, grey and sparkles. Now for the part that I always forget, sticking down my window sheet or acetate, depending on where you're from. And so I'm sticking that on the back of these little Polaroids, ensuring that they cover all edges of this frame, so that none of my shaker elements escape. I'm going to let them sit to dry for just a minute. Once they were dry, I then cut some very thin strips of kids adhesive craft foam, and I'm going to be using this as the edges for my shakers. My shaker elements today are going to be little clay sprinkles, and while they're small, they're not so small that I have to worry about itty bitty gaps like I might with tiny sequins and bits of glitter. So I am going to try and keep it nice and tight on the back so that nothing escapes, but you'll see there's nothing too tricky or special about the way that I'm doing this to seal it up. I have doubled my foam though, I will mention that. Because these pieces are a little bit thick, I like to just stick one piece of my craft foam on top of the other and then cut them like that so that they're already double the thickness. I do this with my shrink plastic shaker cards as well because they're quite chunky pieces to move around. So once they were done, I ran my anti-static powder tool around the edges, ensuring that there's no sticky residue where any of my elements will get stuck to, and to help reduce static. I also pop a little bit of this over my images, just to ensure that everything's nice and slippery and nothing will get caught where I don't want it to. It was then time to adhere the tops of my shakers onto the backgrounds. For my first one, I did it this way, placing the top down onto the background, and then for the others I did it the opposite. I honestly don't know which way is easier or better. I feel like just so long as things are lined up nicely and you've got something with just a little bit of weight to hold it down to ensure that everything adheres nicely, then it doesn't really matter. I'm using my fine tip glue applicator for these, and it is just perfect for these thin bits of foam. I'm going to set them aside to dry for a while. While they're drying, I'm going to just be inking up my card base. I had played around a little bit with the way that these little Polaroids look on the background with my plaid stencil piece that I had made, and things were looking, I guess, a little bit too white and bright. So I thought if this layer was black, then I had my nice plaid layer on top of that, and then my very stark white Polaroids on top of that, things would look good. I'm glad I did this step. It really did make a difference in the end. It was now time to start putting all these pieces together. So here I am adding some double-sided tape to the back of my plaid background, and I'm going to adhere this onto my card base first. Once that was done, it was then time to start adhering my little Polaroids. At first I was going to use my double-sided tape, but that can be a bit temperamental over time, and with all the texture of the glitter, I thought it's likely to fall off at some point. So I decided to go with PVA glue instead. Here I am adding my first little Polaroid into the center, and then from there I'm going to measure out where my other ones are going to go. I played around with whether I wanted them on angles or whether I wanted them straight, and I really like them straight. I feel like it looks like a sweet little gallery of these adorable little black and white photos. Once that was done, it was time to give everything a test shake to make sure nothing got stuck, my Polaroids held on, and that it was all looking how I wanted. I had left enough of a gap down the very bottom inside these Polaroids so that the hearts would completely hide out of vision until you get shaking. To finish this off, I added one little heart on the outside, one bright little spark of red in amongst all the black and white. And there we have it. This card is complete. Let's have a look at all these shaker elements in action. I hope you love this card. If you did, then please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so that you can see what I make next. Don't forget to check out Hobby Hoppers, as they stock so many amazing lawn fawn things to play with. I'll be back very soon with another crafty tutorial. Bye for now.